Hello and welcome to a new episode of Pat's Chat. Today, slightly new setup. I'm working from home. I'm doing the podcast from home due to the CMCO here in Malaysia. But then still, I'm very happy to have an awesome guest today, Zac Liew from Curlec, CEO and co-founder. Thank you very much, Zac, for your time and joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Hey, how is life currently with this current situation?
Life is a little bit funny. I can imagine for most people, it's a funky period. So much uncertainty. So sort of like on a personal and a business level, it's really quite difficult. And I think we can also all agree that sort of the government as well aren't particularly helping, sort of on the personal and business front, due to all of this uncertainty. So it's a funny year and it's crazy. Like yesterday someone was booking in something for December. I'm like, wow, it's really December? December's just around the corner. So crazy year.
Absolutely. You're right. The year passed like nothing. And if you're looking back, then, well, you really have to figure out what you have done over the past 12 months.
Exactly. I think, you just sort of everything shrinks into one. It's sort of, you just lose track of time, if I'm being honest.
Okay, let's see. As usual, I start with your past, and I just came up with the fact that you studied law. So you're a lawyer. You studied in London and Bristol, I think, in UK. How did that happen? I mean, was it your target to become a lawyer? Was that your big goal in the end?
Short answer is no. But how I got into it, I'm going to be perfectly honest. When I was sort of 16, 17, 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was academically relatively well-rounded. I sort of didn't have a particular subject I was super specialized in. Coming from a Chinese family, Asian family, sort of my dad was legally trained and such. I was definitely pushed in that direction. So that's how I ended up doing it. Did 3 years at Bristol undergrad, and then for some reason I went and did law school. I got called to the bar in the UK in London following that. So I did 4 years of legal education, and then after that, just didn't practice a day in my life, to a little bit of my parents' dismay. So,
okay,
I think, So I think whilst I'm glad I went through the experience. I think it was pretty apparent that I never wanted to become a lawyer, particularly when I was sort of in my final year. Mm-hmm. But what I did find was that there are tons of skills that I had picked up, whether it's like analytical stuff or, because I was doing quite a lot of advocacy and stuff like that. They're super transferable to sort of general life and particularly what it is I'm doing now.
So no lost time, basically. You study for your life. When you do that, you didn't become a lawyer, as you said. Interestingly, you changed. Your first job, also back in UK, was working at the bank.
Yeah, so that was one of my first jobs. Not complete my first, but one of my first, which was working at Barclays in London.
Okay, so bank was your first thing. Later you went to tech company. I think they sold cloud solutions, if I read that correctly. So yes. What was your triggers for both, for changing the industries? I mean, both the bank, the tech. Is it like just discover what you really like, get your experience, or what was the background really for these decisions?
Yeah, I think... you said it there, right? Like just exploring more than anything, again, I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. I think maybe the background to all of this is I knew at some point in time I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I just didn't know what is my honest answer. I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. I did say my dad was a lawyer, but sort of he became an entrepreneur after that. And my mom as well. So, I always came from that sort of background. But I wanted, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I tried my hand at banking. Which was cool, but not so cool. But it was. I learned a lot. Working in a big company, you sort of see sort of the inner workings of a bank, processes, what's good, what's bad. and sort of you get a good understanding of that all. And then sort of working on the tech side, that's really when I started to find, okay, something that I'm really, really interested in is technology, how it changes, how we can improve things, change behaviors, etc. And ever since then, sort of on the technology front, that was cool. And then sort of combining the two is now how I've ended up at FinTech.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what was next. You co-founded Curlec in December 2017, so 2 years, 2 years ago. So, but you came back to KL to do that. What was first? You came back, or is it like the idea to want to start up a company, but doing that in Malaysia? How was the process really? What was first? What came after that?
Yeah, so in terms of, I didn't fully move back to KL until this came up. I was not to say in between jobs, but I was in a little bit of limbo. And then sort of when this was presented to me by my co-founder, Steve, it sort of was the sort of, all right, I'm coming back to KL.
Okay, so Steve brought you here. It's a good topic I wanted to discuss with about that also. Steve is originally from Europe. He worked like a long time in Hong Kong, also in KL. But what really impressed me is like the age gap that you two have. So you were founding this company together. Steve, I think I read it somewhere, so I can disclose that he's nearly 65. You're below 30. How did that like really work out? I mean, what was your thoughts at the beginning? It's like, oh, I need to work, or I found a company with someone that is like, okay, on one side for sure also experienced, but on the other side, like 1 or 1.5 generations away from yourself.
Yeah, it's a good question. We get funny looks every time we walk into a meeting together. Don't worry. I mean, the history of Steve and myself is actually Steve is he's a family friend. His son is best friends with my brother, and we grew up together. So he's known me since I was a little kid.
Okay.
And I actually done a little bit of work with Steve previously, or for Steve, if you want to call it that. And sort of, he like you said, he's got a bunch of experience in the sort of technology sector, financial sector, and really sort of Curlec was sort of his brainchild. I'm sure if you ever met him, he'll tell you the story of sort of how this is 20, 30 years in the making, back from his sort of Unisys days in Hong Kong. And sort of we were presented the opportunity to really do what we're doing, sort of, when was that? 2016, 2017 time. So when he sort of came to me and said, hey, this is what we want to do, but I don't think I can do this by myself. I need a sort of a younger guy involved. Obviously, I think the reality is, my first question is like, do you really think I can do it? I think as a young guy, right? I was 27 at the time. Sorry, 26 at the time. And he obviously sort of showed a lot of confidence in me, convinced me. And sort of that's where it all started. I think we always joke about it. At the time of starting the company, we were the direct inverse of each other in terms of age, 26 and 62. That is public knowledge, so that can be disclosed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So So it's interesting relationship. We're very close. On the one hand, he's obviously a business partner, but on the other hand, he's also a mentor. So there's an interesting relationship there. We're very close, and we've sort of known each other for many, many years. And I think on the one hand, I don't really know how to put it, but he brings a lot of experience to the table, and really he's a young guy at heart as well, right? But on the other hand, I think what I bring to the table is, obviously someone young sees a different perspective, in terms of sort of the technology times that we're living in. I think it's that sort of young energy combined with sort of the old head, which I think it's a good combination. combination.
Yeah, I basically just wanted to ask you about that. What's your opinion? Obviously, it works out quite well. I mean, your company started really great, has a lot of success, got a lot of awards already. You're also named in Forbes 30 under 30 list, which is awesome. We talk a lot about, like, okay, when funding companies, like finding the right co-founder, or should you go alone even, but would you say like that was really is one of your strengths, that you're really, I mean, different generations, different cultures, is that a better setup from your point of view than like-minded guys maybe, or that are closer together in their mindsets?
Yeah, I mean, I think while Steve and me are sort of completely separate in terms of experience, we're actually very similar in a lot of ways. So that helps, and we get on very well. And like I said, he's a young guy at heart. You have a little bit of a meeting point in terms of that. In terms of sort of like the founding team and stuff like that, I think it's always there's a lot of sort of narrative about that, right? Making sure you pick the right co-founders, right founding team, etc., etc. I think for us, we've obviously got Steve's wealth of experience and sort of, like I said, the stuff I think I can bring to the table. I think the key is just making sure you get along. You get along. Obviously, you challenge where it needs to be challenged. You sort of can't be yes, yes, yes the whole time.
Yeah.
But alternative, it can't be sort of no, and sort of you blow up and all that sort of stuff. So I think we've got a good mutual relationship, and sort of the team we're building around us as well sort of really buy into that and sort of where it is we want to go. So I think fundamentally it works out. So I do sometimes think about this. If I'd started up a company with a bunch of 26-year-olds at the time, how would that go? And I think. It would be interesting. I'm not sure how successful that would have gone, but it would be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing that experience and those ideas. You mentioned before Curlec is a fintech. That's what you promote. Is it a hype word? What is fintech? How is your definition of fintech nowadays?
Fintech is a hype word. I think that's the short answer to it all. It's not as if financial technology has just been invented. Banks have had technology for many, many years. I think in terms of my definition of fintech, it's definitely what has become more apparent, at least in the last few years, is in terms of accessibility. Cloud has changed everything, obviously, and sort of the way in which services, financial products can reach an end user, whether that's another business or a consumer. In terms of sort of taking down those barriers, it doesn't have to come from a bank anymore. It can come from sort of companies like us. And in terms of sort of our view on fintech, I think sort of the whole concept of a bank is going to really start to change in the next few years. Banks, generally speaking, historically have sold products A to Z, right? Across their whole suite. But I think our definition of a bank is really going to start to change, whether that banks are just a store of money, and they're just a set of APIs moving forward, just a set of services are built on top of that. You have a marketplace of services or products, even if you want to call it that. So I think, that's how I see it. The accessibility, the choice, is really how I start to define fintech. But is fintech a hype word? Yes. I don't think financing technology have sort of been invented in the past 3-5 years or something.
Okay, maybe not a fair question, but I mean these terms just pop up recently. I see that you have like Martech and Lawtech, and I don't know, everything is about tech, but as you said correctly, I mean it was like this before. It's not really that banks are just starting to use technology or digital technologies right now.
Yeah.
What confused me sometimes is, or what also some of the people are confused when they hear fintech, they think it's everything about ewallet, right? That is the first thing that comes in your mind when you hear fintech, and but you are not doing a e-wallet, right? I mean, we have many e-wallets here in, in Malaysia. This is crazy. But talk me through what Curlec is really doing from your perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're completely right. I think when we say we're Curlec, we're a fintech company, to other sort of, people who aren't in the industry, and particularly when you say you're involved in payments, the first question is, are you an e-wallet? And the answer is no, we're not an e-wallet. I think, in terms of what we are, we're obviously a fintech company, and our whole value proposition is that we make it easy for businesses to collect payments. Collect payments, particularly recurring payments, is our niche, and ultimately, sort of at a fundamental level, to take control of that cash flow. That's where we're helping business take control of that cash flow. And how we do this is we build technology on top of banking payment infrastructure, where that's sort of bank-to-bank payment infrastructure, sort of the local network here in Malaysia is PayNet. Alternatively, more recently, we've also rolled out card processing through the Visa MasterCard network. So, that's what we're about. We're more about collections as opposed to payments, although we do have payment capabilities. But fintech and payments more generally is extremely broad, right? And to just sort of define it as an e-wallet type of thing is I think it's a little naive. But it's like I said, so broad. And even when you just take payments as sort of its own individual component of fintech, there's so many different types of payments. And in the case of e-wallets, they're B2C, retail, point of sale type transactions, generally speaking. It's easy to see, it's easy to touch, it's easy to understand. But when you look sort of at the B2B space, which is, in some ways we're addressing sort of the inefficiencies of B2B payments, it's unsexy, but there's still a huge market to go after there. So, I think, that's what we're about at Curlec, and that's just my personal view on sort of fintech and,
Sure. So you're covering the B2B, or you're covering the B2C market really?
Both.
Yeah.
And as in we're a B2B company, but we can facilitate both B2B transactions as well as B2C. So B2B2B or B2B2C, so on the consumer level, subscription payments for, membership type stuff. Take a gym, you pay your recurring membership. But in the B2B space, again, recurring bills, recurring invoices, take a outsource accountant or outsource company secretary, who bills you every month, every quarter, or whatever. There's still very, very manual processes involved. And, those are the sort of things that we want to solve.
I understand. That's a very good point. So direct debit payment is basically the process of you as a consumer granting your the company that invoices you, maybe on a monthly basis, for example, in insurance, the right to get the money from your account directly without any further interaction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But it's a one-time authorization.
A one-time authorization that you can, of course, also cancel anytime, right? Because that sounds a bit scary. But why would that be? I mean, why would that be? Well, it is a huge market, but the question would be, why is that? Why is direct debit payment such a huge market still today?
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of reframe that question. So, why is recurring payment such a huge market? And I think, like I said, the existing B2C and B2B market is already huge. In the case of B2B, so many different industries haven't been touched and can't be touched by traditional processing, whether that's, credit card processing, or in the case of sort of new age processing, e-wallets. Those guys can't handle that. So already existing large market to go after. And why it's never really been addressed is because mechanisms like direct debit have been so difficult to use in the past. It's all been paper-based, which means that firstly, only corporates can use it. SMEs have never had the ability to use it. Direct debit is not a new concept, but just the accessibility of it is. Banks would never serve SMEs. And now we are serving that market. We're serving the underserved guy, SME, who's never been able to do this by using technology, but also by being able to go out and serve them from a cost perspective. We've got a team that can go and do that. But I think, it's never really been used, why the market's so big. But I think actually, this pie is only getting bigger. And really for us, we are big believers in this whole concept, or this whole notion of the subscription economy. This idea that more and more commerce is going to start to go on a recurring basis. For obvious reasons, businesses want predictable income. They want recurring customers. Consumers or end users don't want to buy products anymore. They'd rather subscribe to services. And, Patrick, you're from technology background. You understand sort of how SaaS has changed software, right? And I think we're seeing the SaaSification of many, many other industries. And I think this pandemic has really been a big wake up call to a lot of companies. When your revenues just fall off a cliff overnight, you need predictable recurring income. So really for us, our long-term play here is serving businesses in that. Obviously, payments is one component of that piece of the jigsaw, but the pie is only getting bigger. So we think there's a huge market to go after, and obviously we're very bullish on it.
And of course, the market is huge. We're talking only about Malaysia is already huge. You made, I think, 100 million ringgit has passed through Curlec over the past, 12 to 18 months, I think, something like that. It's a huge amount of money that is really turned around via Curlec. That gives you, of course, all the right to believe that is a great market. It is. Again, Curlec awarded with Malaysia's best fintech startup at the Southeast Asian Global Startup Awards last year. That's a long title.
It's a very long title.
Yeah, it's a long title. Are you striving to become the next Malaysian unicorn?
Short answer, yes.
Yeah, you should say yes. Yeah.
I think we got to dream big, right? And I think for us, actually, we think about this, right? Because everyone says they want to be the next unicorn. And I think everyone should strive to be the next, humongous company or next unicorn that comes out of the region. You got to dream big. And sort of, we're no different. We're dreaming big. I think maybe just to correct one of your statements there, it's actually $100 million we process through the system.
Oh, wow. Now. Okay, awesome.
Which is pretty cool.
That's even 4 times more than ringgit. Yeah.
Yeah, just fresh, just hot off the press. But I think also for us, part of the challenge that we see for us is obviously scaling the business, but scaling the business as a Malaysian business. There's always a perception, at least, when you talk to investors or other companies around the region, sexier markets around Southeast Asia, as an example. And generally speaking, Malaysia is seen as a bit of a sleepy country. We want to change that perception, and become genuinely the first Malaysian unicorn. I know there is another one sitting down in Singapore. We want to put Malaysia on the map. We've got such great talent here. We've got, a lot of smart people, and it's just, we want to wave the flag and try to get to where we need to be, where we deserve to be honest.
Understand and fully agree with you. Also, it would be awesome to have a unicorn, a Malaysian unicorn that stays in Malaysia. Also, with giving some punches to the side. You just recently received venture money, I think, from 500 startups. Undisclosed amount. Maybe a chance right now to let us know.
Undisclosed.
Undisclosed. Okay, no worries. How do you see venture capital money coming into the company? I mean, of course, it gives you the opportunity to develop, to become bigger, to expand. Also, you give up a little bit of power also. And when we just mentioned, okay, you want to stay in Malaysia, do you see that as a risk? Is that something you can talk to with a VC and say, look, that is what we are going to do? Is that in line with your investment that you're really doing?
Yeah. And so I think, when you start to take VC money on, things change, is the reality, right? At the end of the day, sort of what is a VC's purpose of investing money in you? It's to make money, and there's no two ways about it, right? They're in it to make money for their LPs who've invested in their fund. So obviously you've got to show growth. We're lucky because 500 startups, are great to work with, very, very supportive. I think I can safely say this, very hands-off as well. So, and, particularly as an early stage company, you don't want to be sort of bogged down with reporting and sort of just managing investors the whole time. You want to be out there trying to sell your product, develop your product, et cetera, et cetera. And 500 startups, and 500 startups are extremely supportive, and really, really great to work with. Really, really great to work with. I think long-term wise, obviously we will look to bring in more funding. But like you said, things change, and we want to be a Malaysian company. I think we also want to expand regionally, and further down the line, bring in the right people, investors, to help us go into other countries, provide the right support. We don't know everything. I think is pretty key. So yeah, did that answer your question? I don't know. I think I might have rambled a little bit.
No. I think also the question was a bit not so easy, but I think you got a point. At least I get the ideas about it. Again, this is money you can develop, you can expand. But of course, as you said, VCs invest money because they want to make money. Obviously, different VCs, different approaches. I'm happy to hear that 500 startups has this, like, as you said, hands off. You just mentioned also like your next plans. That will have been my next question. Develop regionally. What is the next big things coming up that we can see from Curlec?
Yeah. So, up until now, we've been very, very focused on Malaysia. We started off as a Malaysian company, based here. Sort of launched the company in 2018, early 2018, and sort of have just been in Malaysia. Like I said, focused primarily on direct debit. We do FPX as well and many other stuff. But that's a domestic payment product. A domestic payment product that no one's really touched at the moment. And as such, so we've been focused on Malaysian merchants and stuff like that. What we have recently done is sort of moved, recurring payments is our niche, not direct debit, and recurring payments, adding the capability to do recurring payments via Visa, MasterCard. So you're bulking out the payment options out there, still with this recurring payments theme in mind. And really sort of when we look to expand, it's going to other countries, adding recurring payments in those respective countries, the direct debit paynet equivalents, working with those countries. There are a lot of interesting developments going on in this space in terms of sort of how the way in which central banks or clearing houses will start to process payments. Real-time payments is coming. It's just around the corner. Oh, it's already here. Do it now is one example in Malaysia. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sort of, between sort of the, switches in all the countries, tying those up, so the ability to do cross-border payments extremely cheaply and also real-time is something that we're super excited about and we want to be a part of. So, regional expansion through payments, but also I think, like I said, we're big believers in this whole concept of the subscription economy. And when you look at sort of the subscription economy or sort of recurring revenue businesses, the processes involved in all of this, actually, there's a lot of stuff in there that is not being served at the moment, at least in this part of the world. Payments just one piece of the puzzle, but you've got a whole bunch of other processes that, are served, but by manual means. Subscription billing, from the whole onboarding order process, what are different subscription plans I have, etc. Different pricing, tiers of pricing. There's so many different combinations of this. Billing and invoicing, and then payments, which is what we really do, reconciliation, which we partly do, and all the sort of analytics and data, custom analytics, data analytics, sales analytics that go along with this. So really producing an end-to-end piece of software. And, really means that businesses can come into the subscription economy. So, that's what we're also building. Payments just one piece of the puzzle. but it's pretty cool. We're excited by it because, like I said, we're very bullish on this whole notion that more and more commerce is going to go recurring, and building tools for businesses to ultimately get into that is what we want to do.
Awesome. A lot of things to come from Curlec. I'm really excited to see the future, the next things that are coming, following your company, also yourself. Thank you very much, Zac, for sharing your insights and knowledge. Really appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of good ideas behind it. Maybe two, three final words for fresh grads, for students that want to become entrepreneurs. What is currently with CMCO in Malaysia your number one tip if you want to start a business right now?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think in light of everything, it really does depend on the industry. Would be my take on this. If you want to be an entrepreneur, do look at industries right now that are set to benefit. Maybe benefit is a bad word here, but are set to sort of ultimately long-term do well as a result of sort of, the trends that we're seeing now. And if you can identify something in those spaces and then execute against that, then why not? Throw yourself into that sort of uncomfortable position. I think if you're sort of someone looking to get into something more traditional, I think be a little bit wary because, entrepreneurship is not sort of, it's glamorous from the outside, but sort of in the inside, there's a lot of hard work and sort of particularly when it's your own money, etc. So be a bit wary for that. But I think, if you have something, look at sort of the trends that are going to come out of this and go for it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zac, for your time again and sharing your ideas, your knowledge, your wisdom about, FinTech, also what you do at Curlec. I really wish you great success and thanks.
Thanks very much, Pat.
Thanks. And thanks to the audience for watching this episode. I hope you liked it. And then I see you next week for another episode of Pat's Chat. Thanks. Have a great day.